Okay, so today I'm going to be making some bread. We're going to go ahead and get our 3/4 cup of warm water. Not too hot, not too cold, so the yeast can rise and it'll activate. So I'm going to go ahead and warm up this water over here. While that's being done, I'm going to go ahead and get this yeast open. It's got a little plastic seal on it. I don't buy the yeast packets. I just use the regular active dry yeast. So the water's heating up while I cut open the yeast. So we're going to need of yeast. We're going to need 2 1/4 teaspoons. The water should be hot by now, so I'm going to get some of that. Perfect temperature. Not too hot, not too cold. Just right. Okay, so I'm going to be doubling the recipe to make 2 loaves of bread. So 3/4 cup of water. Now we're going to need 1 packet of yeast is the same as 2 1/4 teaspoons. So I'm going to add 1 teaspoon, 2 teaspoons, and where's our 1/4? Right here. Yeast does give off a little smell when it's starting to activate, so that is normal. And you just want to let to stir this around until all the yeast dissolves, and then those nice foamy bubbles form on top right there. So which means I've added the perfect temperature. If all the yeast doesn't dissolve in here, that's okay, because it will when you mix it in with the flour. So I'm going to set this to the side and start on the next one. So 1 teaspoon, 2 1/4. Stir that with my fork. Now, when we're done with this, we're going to go ahead and let this sit. We're going to go ahead and add our salt, butter, milk into the bowl. You don't have to use sugar. It's optional. I'm not going to use it this time. So, it's all nice. Nice creamy bubbles on that. So, yeast is activating over here. So, we're going to go ahead and get our mixing bowl. Since I'm doubling the recipe, I'm going to use a large mixing bowl. Now, 1 teaspoon. Well, since we're doubling the recipe, we're going to need 2 teaspoons of salt. Okay, so we're going to need 2 tablespoons of this, since we are doubling the recipe. 2 tablespoons of butter. Okay, that can go to the side for now. Okay, we need 1/2 cup of milk. So I'm going to take my liquid measuring cup. I'm using rice milk. See, this I'm using it as a vegan recipe since, no dairy or anything. So we've got our milk. But we're going to need a whole cup of milk since we are doubling the recipe. So another half goes in there. Next, we are going to add our flour. We're going to add it gradually. So first, we're going to add 2 cups. And then we're going to add the last cup next. But since we're doubling it, I'm going to have to add 4 cups first. 1. I am making it a whole wheat loaf, so I'm adding whole wheat flour instead of just regular all-purpose flour. I prefer all-purpose flour opposed to bread flour. It works a lot better. It's 2 cups. I'm just going to add it all at once. It doesn't really matter.
Okay, great. Right here.
4th cup of flour going in. Kind of topped it off a little bit too much, so I'm going to take my knife and scrape the excess back in there. 4th cup. You know what? Yeah, let's go ahead and... Now we're going to start mixing our flour with a large spoon. And we're going to go ahead and mix all that stuff in. Now, we're going to add our yeast. Soften up that dough some more. So the flour really dries up all the liquids. So, we're going to add our first bowl of yeast. Then our second bowl of yeast. Our flour right here. Now let's go ahead and mix this up. And we will have to add more flour to it. this is not going to be enough. So 2 more cups of flour going into the bowl. 1 cup. 1 more. And then we can retire the flour for now. Good. Flour gone. Now let's go ahead and stir this up really nicely. You want to get all the flour you can. You don't want to leave a whole bunch of excess flour in the bowl, because it doesn't affect it that much if you can't. Now you can stop using the spoon as long as the dough's not too sticky, and start mixing with your hands and start stirring in all that flour in there. Okay. Now get all the flour nice and on there. It's going to break apart at first. You may have to add more flour. So I'm going to go ahead and take it out of our bowl, put it on the counter we need. In this flour right here. Add some more on top so it can all stick together. Nice little dough ball going on right here. You're going to need this until it all sticks together into one nice ball. See, this is it right now. Whole wheat loaf of bread. Bread is something that you use a lot, so I always like to make it. It's fun to make, quick and easy. Alright, let's get this. Now it's starting to come together. I'm going to add some more flour. You can just get yourself a handful and just pour it around on your hands and on the surface that you're kneading your dough on. And knead that all together. We're going to need the oil to coat the bowl though, because the yeast will make it rise and we don't want it to stick all together. So we're going to make sure it's all together. Now we are going to get this oil right here, my extra virgin olive oil, and we're going to take our big, large bowl, very large. You want a large bowl because the bread will rise and it will double in size. So you're going to want to coat that really nicely with olive oil. I mean, it doesn't really matter if this dough gets on there, because I mean, it's going to get on there anyway when you put the dough ball in there. So you want that nice, evenly coated. Then you take some, pour a little on there, the dough, rub it in there, massage it nicely, and there's our dough ball. It's all nice and doughy. We can go ahead and put that in our large mixing bowl, and I'm going to go ahead and rinse off my hands before I do this next part. We're going to put it in saran wrap and put it in a nice warm place where it can rise for an hour. So let's go ahead and get started on that. Got my rag right here if I ever needed it. Comes in handy a whole lot. Okay, so dough ball. Once again, let's get my saran wrap. Doesn't really matter what kind you use. And you don't have to have saran wrap. Say if you have like a nice dark cloth that'll cover the whole thing, you can use that as well. So, got my saran wrap going on right here. Go ahead and rip that off. And we're going to cover the bowl nice and evenly. Okay, so get some more saran wrap because one strip does not cover it all. It doesn't really matter what brand you're using. I'm using Reynolds right here, the Reynolds wrap. So let's get that over here. And this goes in a nice warm place for an hour. So I'm going to sit on top of the refrigerator. We're going to set our clocks for 1 hour. Timer. 1 hour, and start that now. So we've got our bread out done rising. The dough, nice. Okay, let me go ahead and take this out. Wait, first, almost forgot, we got to take our flour and flour our hands and the surface that we're going to be kneading our dough again on. So you want to take some, get you some flour on there. just so it doesn't stick to the counter space. You can just take some of that extra dough, the flour, my bad, and just sprinkle it on your hands so it doesn't stick to your hands as well. Okay, so let me get this evenly spread on the counter. Now we can take our dough and plop that out nicely onto the counter. Now we want to start kneading it. And the flour really does help take down the stickiness, so it's not nearly sticky anymore. Knead that very nicely. Alright, that's good enough. So we're going to put this to the side over here. And we are going to take our bread pans, our loaf pans. Since I am doubling the dough, I'm going to make 2. So let's go ahead and put this back over here for a second, because I don't need them just yet. And we're going to roll out the bread to where I can cut it nice and in half again. So let's cut this in half. About here is good. So we got our bread, 2 different loaves. One looks bigger than the other, so I'm going to borrow some dough from over here. It's a little still sticky, so rub it in some flour if you need to. Mix it in with this dough. Okay, now that the dough balls have been formed, got my 2 dough balls right here. We're going to put these to the side, and we're going to take our olive oil, get our bread loaf ends, and add a generous amount of oil in there. Oil the sides and the bottom really nicely so that the bread does not stick when we bake it. I've got my oven preheated to 375. See, getting this nice in there. I'm gonna take some oil from my other bed pan because we don't need all that oil in there. It's nicely oiled. Let's put this to the side. Let's get the other one on. That's called on. And any extra oil can go back in your bottle, as long as it's not been contaminated with all your whole wheat flour. Things like this one has, so I'm just gonna leave it over here. So now we're going to take our bread dough and we're going to form it all nicely into a nice rectangle shape. Get it nice, and then we're going to put it in the dough pan. So we're going to flatten this out across the whole surface of the loaf pan. You want to pat that down all nice. Okay, so that's one. First loaf. It will expand because what we're going to do now is we're going to take this and get a nice cloth or saran wrap or something. I'm going to use a cloth this time. And you're going to cover it over with the cloth for about 30 minutes and let it rise in the bread pan. So let's go ahead and make this bread all nice and even. You don't want half, a sloped bread to where only half is risen. Okay, so the bread is done rising. Gonna go ahead and cut 3 dashes in it. So right across that, let the air and the extra heat escape. If you cut more than 3, it's okay. It doesn't really make a difference how many you cut. You just want at least 3. Okay, so that's good. So now my oven is at 375. So we're gonna take these over here and the oven. We're gonna put these in 375 for 45 minutes. And when we come back, the bread will be done. I'll show you everything back. Okay, so our bread is done. We've got the nice little crust. It's baked very evenly. Tested it with the knife about halfway through the cooking time. It's got a nice moist bottom of the crust, so that's really good. Nice and soft. So we're gonna eat this, and hope it works out for you wherever you are trying it out. And that's it for today.